Right, good morning. Well, as always, can I ask you to take a moment to like and subscribe to this show if you've not already done so? Right, sorry about that. That wasn't supposed to happen, as you probably guessed. Right, good morning. Welcome to Elevenses. I'm Kevin Williams of Survival Skills Rider Training, and got a packed show as always for you today. What do we have? Well, first of all, we have a story about government looking at petrol conservation measures in response to the oil crisis. We'll have a look at what that comprises and if we need to worry about filling our tank up right away. TfL are planning on introducing what's being described as stealth speed cameras in London, and we'll come back to that story at the end of the show while we have a look at the in-depth item. Hackney Council, they have finally backed down on parking charges and introduced some much reduced fees. Hackney, yep, so that's Hackney. Up in Yorkshire, Richmond, their young rider charity up there has reopened thanks to Honda loaning them some bikes. 3 teens have been arrested after an electric bike hit and run incident, seriously injured an 11-year-old. We'll have a look at some UK and world news in brief before we have a look at the Yamaha TRACER experience, which is going to offer some turn up and ride UK tours. Yamaha Europe is also supporting the Riders for Health initiative in Africa. Suzuki have acquired a solid state battery developer, while LiveWire have slashed the price of their one flagship motorcycle, and we'll ask why that might be. A couple of other bikes that have appeared. It's that time of year when the mainstream motorcycles pretty much all been launched. So we'll have a look at a Bimota, the KB399, which wraps something exotic around the ZX-4RR Kawasaki. I've actually said exotic frame, and the answer to that is no, they actually don't. That was I misquoted myself there. And the AJP PR7, that's a bike you may not have heard of. It's a new one to me. It offers rally bike riding experience. And finally, as I say, the in-depth item, we'll have a look at the sort of the colourful history of speed cameras in the UK, and I'll explain why I use that term when we get to the end of the show. Right, so what haven't I managed to get on screen, and that is the graphic that I try to get up. Hopefully we can get this up fairly quickly. There it is. I had this all set up again, and for some reason it has defaulted back to the startup screen. Anyway, there we are. So what am I talking about today to start with? Well, I've got a couple of things I just want to mention. The court case that I talked about a couple of episodes ago, the 6 low traffic neighbourhoods in Croydon. You may recall that a judge concluded that it would be a, quote, misuse of the Road Traffic Act 1984 if changes to any road layout were carried out to raise money. He ordered their removal. And this raised the prospects of refunds to the tune of millions of pounds to drivers who'd copped ticket for driving through those affected roads. Now, I gather that the council has already managed to bring in a fair refund system for those reclaiming fines, which is good news. Here's an interesting item now. With motorcyclists being so frequently injured when we crash, despite figures showing we don't crash much more often than anyone else, there have been numerous schemes, of course, to protect the rider from the consequences. And one of the most infamous, for those who remember that far back, was the TRL's leg protectors. Now, since lower limb injuries were common, the leg protectors were maybe an obvious solution, but they were basically steel shields that bolted to the sort of common at the time engine bars that stuck out and protected the extremities of your motorcycle engine from the a drop of the motorcycle. Now, unfortunately, whilst they would have protected the lower limb in a glancing impact, at least that was the plan, they had the unfortunate effect of folding the rider forwards at the knee and over the tank in a head-on impact. Then, of course, the rider's head hit the side of the car that they just impacted. Now, I can't find any photos of those early leg protectors. They must be out there somewhere. The test mule was a Triumph, if I recall correctly. Maybe they were all removed in embarrassment, I don't know. But the work was quietly resurrected some years later, and I did find a pic of this trial. Now, let me just zoom in on that. I think, I'm not sure if that's a Norton rotary. Believe that the TRL did test some of those bikes and destroy them. And you can see that the leg protectors are now being kind of integrated into the fairing, which at least made them rather less ugly. And an airbag has been added to the petrol tank area to prevent the sort of head-on car impact. Now, probably not too surprisingly, this particular system never really made much of an impact. Plans to make it compulsory, which had been mooted, were dropped as well. And maybe they noticed that as most bikes being bought in the UK were no longer made in Britain, it was going to be rather difficult to legislate this on foreign manufactured machine. Now, to my knowledge, only a Goldwing and a Piaggio scooter, I think it is, have factory airbags right at this moment. But the idea, of course, never goes away. Somebody's always coming up with what they think is a better plan for airbags, and this is the latest one. Let me just again zoom in on that, give you a full view of it. It's a sort of donut, as you can see, to go around the bike there. Now, appearing on LinkedIn, which seems to be becoming something of a mouthpiece for people with harebrained motorcycle safety inventions. The article says, instead of airbags only in jackets or in the front of the bike, imagine a system where airbags deploy around the entire motorcycle the moment an accident is detected. Okay, I have imagined it, and the problem fairly clearly is that someone has taken a chunk out of the front of the airbag. So the donut is incomplete, and it leaves the rider free to part company with the bars by flying over the handlebars in the traditional manner. So it's a bit like fitting a car with airbags everywhere except in front of the occupants. Now, I dare say that the designer would say we can fix that, but it seems to me it's rather missing the essential point in the first place, that if you're going to design something like this, you need to understand the dynamics of a motorcycle crash. There's no word, there's no indication here that the designer actually does do that. And of course, there's no word on inflation time, which is absolutely crucial if it's to be effective, or how much bulk and mass this would add to a conventional bike. It's easy to sort of draw arrows pointing at bits of the bike. Anyway, another day, another acronym found on an advanced motorcycle group website was the statement, remember OAP. Now, for a second or two, I thought this was going to be a reference to the aging demographic of motorcycling generally, but I discovered it means, quote, whenever you are considering an overtaking opportunity, remember OAP, observe, anticipate, plan. Just seems some people love making up acronyms. Right, okay, let's move on, have a quick look at the weather for motorcyclists for the week ahead. Now, temperatures are expected to hover at or below, be a little bit below average later on this week as things go on, and there could be frequent showers, blustery winds, and even snow in parts of Scotland. Now, since the last few days have been exceptionally mild, we will notice a difference by the time we get to Wednesday. Now, this afternoon, there'll be some cloud and some patchy light rain around. It will be sinking southeastwards into England and Wales from the northwest. The bright spells will develop behind it in the north, and there will be still some scattered blustery showers in the far north. Now, Monday turns cloudier for many. Parts of England and Wales, however, will see some brighter breaks at times. It'll be windy in the north, heavy rain moving into northwest Scotland. Tuesday sees rain pushing southwest. It'll turn locally heavy across central and southern areas, and scattered showers with some sunny spells will be developing behind the rain, but it remains windy. And Wednesday, this will be a chilly and wintry day, windy day rather, with some wintry spells over the higher hills. There should be some sunshine between the showers. So drier Thursday, rain arriving in northwest later on that day. And check your forecasts for the weather later in the week. It looks changeable. Right, okay, and on to the news. Right, straight to the oil crisis then. Now, despite some lurid headlines and rising prices, there's no immediate shortage of fuel at the pump. Filled up perfectly all right yesterday, no queues. But officials at the Department for Transport have been working with the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero, wonderful name, that DESNZ, perfectly forgettable. They've been analysing what measures could be taken to curb oil demand. Now, the International Energy Agency, which is the sort of world energy watchdog, they've advised member states, including the UK government, to considering lowering the speed limit on motorways because obviously fuel consumption rises sharply with speed. And there is talk of more dramatic measures to be considered, including limiting when vehicles can be used. There's also suggestions to encourage car sharings and to use public transport. And alongside that, there is also discussion about the wisdom of a return to working from home, which obviously would remove journeys from the roads completely. Now, the IEA, they've also advised diverting liquid petroleum gas from transport use. Some cars still use it and some buses do too, I believe, to ensure enough remains for essential domestic purposes such as cooking. Apparently, shortages have already affected countries such as India, which is slightly odd because they get a lot of their gas and oil directly from Russia. Anyway, it seems that the DESNZ may have been doing some off-the-record briefings because the agency apparently is confident that the UK has a diverse and resilient fuel supply. Now, I would say it's absolutely important to emphasise that right now supplies are stable. There's no need to panic buy, but be aware that behind the scenes the government is quietly planning for what happens if that changes, and that would presumably change if the conflict in the Middle East carries on for a long period. Now, here in London, a high-tech and stealthy new kind of speed camera is being introduced. It doesn't flash when it detects speeding motorists. It doesn't need warning road markings, and apparently it produces higher quality images of offending motorists too. Now, current speed cameras use sensors embedded in the road surface. As you probably noticed, there are usually sort of some sensor cut into the tarmac ahead of the camera. But these ones apparently use advanced 4D, not quite sure what 4D is, time as well as everything else, imaging radar anyway, and a 4K camera that apparently makes them more reliable and more effective. They can also cover up to 5 lanes of bidirectional traffic at any one time, compared with old ones, which could only manage to monitor 3 lanes traveling in one direction. And the new cameras are said to be installed over the next few weeks at 10 sites across the capital: Haringey, Tower Hamlets, Havering, Croydon, Hammersmith and Fulham, Brent, Hackney, Ealing and Sutton. All those locations are going to be on 30 or 20 mile per hour roads, according to TfL, and they have been identified, they say, on the basis of suitability and risk. Suitability presumably means catching lots of people. So I'll come back to this story at the end of the show for a look at the question of what cameras are actually aiming to achieve. Is it revenue collection, which is, of course, the popular view, or deterrence, which is, of course, the claimed aim? Now, second story is quite good news for bikers who park and ride in Hackney, because the council have finally, at last, backed down on their plans, which would have seen motorcyclists charged as much as car drivers to park in the borough. Now, when Hackney's plans first emerged in lockdown in 2020, the first iteration of their charges would have seen motorcycle riders forced to pay as much as £12,500 a year to park their bikes in the borough's bike parking bays. It would have been rather less for a residence permit, but still a swinging amount of money. The Save London Motorcycling Group formed to fight the plans, which, if I remember right, were announced without any consultation. They pointed out they substantially threatened riders who lived and work in the borough. They pointed out, for example, that a district nurse uses her little bike to zip around from location to location, visiting patients, and each time she parks in a public bay, she would have been hit by those amazing charges. They also pointed out that charging electric motorcycles exactly the same as an ICE bike completely undermined the council's justification that the charges were based on the impact of motorcycles on the air quality. Now, the council eventually came back with some revised, slightly lower charges, but they were still outrageous. Finally, yet more public lobbying has gone on, public meetings, lots of wasted time and effort. The council has now finally caved in and will dramatically cut the proposed charges. A parking permit to park in Hackney will now cost just £38 a year for most riders. The daily rate to park has been set between £1.20 and £2.50. And hallelujah, electric bikes will park free of charge. A Save London motorcycling spokesman said this entire episode was avoidable. The council chose confrontation instead of common sense, and as a result, taxpayers have funded the years of legal costs defending a pointless policy that was always clearly excessive, unjustified, and reckless. The Labour administration in Hackney were completely politically isolated on this issue, and yet repeatedly chose not to listen to an overwhelming majority of riders and residents who opposed their plans. The decision to punish some of the poorest workers with unsustainable costs was entirely political. The episode, they said, is symptomatic of a bunker mentality council unbound by reason, evidence, or common sense, with no real regard for its most economically vulnerable residents. Residents deserve better. And I can't say that I actually disagree with that. Now, you may remember another story that I ran some months ago. The Richmond Area Motorcycle Project, RAMP, is a charity catering to young riders. It's based at Catterick Garrison in Yorkshire. They were forced to close because riders stole their training, thieves rather stole their training fleet. The charity had 4 Honda CRF 125Fs stolen in December, but thanks to the Honda Adventure Centre, the charity for young riders will be able to reopen this month and start running courses next month. And this is all thanks to Honda's Dave Thorpe. He's a 3-time motocross world champion, you may remember. He runs the Honda Adventure Centre in Somerset. He said he was disappointed to read about the theft of the bikes and decided that they could actually offer the use of their own bikes because they are due to be replaced. They can loan them out to RAMP, and so RAMP are able to relaunch. 3 of the CRF 125s will be on loan till the end of October, and that will allow RAMP to sort out some purchase of new bikes to replace them later this year. Money which should come in from crowdfunding and insurance payout. Apparently they had been supported well. Right, okay, let's just take a quick break. As always, can I ask you to take a moment to like and subscribe to this show if you've not already done so? Every click helps other motorcyclists discover my content, or simply share the word the old-fashioned way by telling your riding buddies about 11ses. They can watch on catch-up. Remember, my latest riding skills articles are always free, and you can get all the links delivered weekly to your email inbox by subscribing to my newsletter at survivalskills.substack.com. Or you can use this QR code to jump straight to it, when the show's over of course. No spam, and if you don't like the content, unsubscribe at any time. Right, okay, continuing with some news from around the world. The first story is that Yamaha Motor Europe is continuing its partnership with Riders for Health in the Gambia. And with a bit of luck, I have a photograph. There we go. These bikes are used to deliver essential healthcare to remote communities, basically. There's very little means of getting around otherwise. So since 2022, Yamaha has helped fund, supply and maintain this fleet, which consists entirely of its AG 100 bikes, and allows health workers to get to villages to deliver vaccines, monitor pregnancies and deliver basic medical care. So they're not just a leisure or performance tool here, but they are a vital, practical tool that can sort of make the difference between isolation and access. And it's part of Yamaha's broader sustainability strategy to maintain this collaboration. Right, okay, less enthusiastically, 3 teenagers have been arrested along with after an 11-year-old boy was hit by an electric motorcycle. This was up in the Scotswood area of Newcastle. The boy suffered a broken leg. He was taken to hospital following what the police described as a hit and run collision. Now, the arrests form part of an ongoing investigation, with officers continuing to appeal for witnesses and information. And this is a photograph that they have released. I've enhanced it slightly to make it slightly more obvious. One of the bikes appears to be a petrol machine. The others all look like illegal e-bikes, though. So if you've got any news about that, drop the local police a line. Right, okay, so what next? Well, the Yamaha TRACER experience, it's said to be a cruise holiday concept brought to motorcycle touring. Basically, you turn up at the start point and jump on a bike and enjoy an all-inclusive touring holiday with all the planning being done for you. You can bring a pillion, you can book as a group. Now, it's run in conjunction with focused events. All tours are in the UK and they last 3 or 5 days. You arrive at the Yamaha dealer, you ride away on a fully equipped Yamaha TRACER 7 GT. Fuel, insurance, accommodation and 3 meals a day are included in the price. There's an option to upgrade the bike to a more powerful TRACER 9 GT as well, and there are also low seat options and ride height adjustments available. The 3-day trips take in Wales and Snowdonia and the Brecon Beacons, a national parks tour which departs from Manchester, or there is a Southwest Peninsula tour which heads down from Dorset to Land's End. They all cover around 200 miles per day. Now, there are 2 5-day tours. They run out of Glasgow. One heads into the Scottish Highlands. The other looks at, well, visits parts of Scotland, then hops over the water to Northern Ireland, covers about 900 miles in those 5 days. So you're probably wondering how much. Well, depending on your point of view, it's either expensive or surprisingly affordable. The 3-day tours start at £1,575. 5-day tours are £2,695. Now, you could obviously organise something for much less for yourself on your own machine, particularly if you're taking a passenger, when this appears to get rather more expensive. But if you don't have a bike that you can use for such a tour, and you do want to go on a sort of touring holiday like this, maybe it's not so bad. I did wonder, though, how they would cope with someone arriving with a full license but no recent riding experience. No word on that. Now, Suzuki has confirmed they have acquired a company called Canadivia. They are apparently a long-established developer of solid-state lithium-ion batteries. With the transfer of the business, including all the technology, the development, the design, the sales operations, set to take place on July the 1st. Now, Canadivia, they were previously known as Hitachi Zosen until a 2024 rebranding, which may give you a hint as to where they came from. They've been working on solid state battery technology since 2006, and they actually launched their first solid state units for applications, they say specialist applications, in 2024, and they are supplying sectors such as aerospace and industrial machinery, where they say wide temperature operation and enhanced safety are critical. Now, the company has their own proprietary process. Basically takes out the flammable liquid electrolyte, which is found in conventional lithium-ion batteries, which is why when they do occasionally catch fire, they burst into flame. And the battery is are also said to be have improved thermal stability, so they work over a wider range of temperatures. Now, Suzuki's not disclosed any price that they've paid for this, but they do state that the acquisition aligns with their broader electrification strategy, and it gives the firm direct control over their advanced battery research and engineering. Now, right now, Suzuki's two-wheel electric lineup, there's only one. It's the E-Address scooter. It's got a 3 kilowatt-hour fixed lithium-ion battery, and the bike has a claimed range of 39.7 miles. That is about 80 kilometers. The company has not yet announced how or when this solid-state technology will be integrated into future motorcycle or scooter models, but I would imagine it will probably appear in small commuter bikes. Now, in a move which seems to have caught industry specialists entirely by surprise, LiveWire has slashed the price of the LiveWire ONE in Europe. Their flagship model, originally launched in Europe as the Harley-Davidson LiveWire in 2023, at what many considered to be an utterly unsustainable price of 25,000 basically euros. It's now on the official German product page for the company with a starting price of 14,790 euros. Now that's already 5,100 euros below their revised price, which was reduced after the LiveWire ONE became a sort of or rather LiveWire became their own company. They were spun off from Harley-Davidson. So total price now is down 10,200 euro. That's just over 40% on the original European price launch, which was just 3 years ago. Now, it's not difficult really to see why the latest price cut has been made. The new showroom price is just 10 euro more than the Germany list price for Honda's WN7, which has been one of the most closely watched mass market electric motorcycles of recent times. Now, on to some petrol engines. For decades, Bimota have priced themselves as a boutique Italian brand. They've been using exotic frames, premium components, and scary price tags. But Bimota were acquired 6 years ago by Kawasaki, and since then, every Bimota has been built around a Kawasaki engine, and they produced everything from the KB4 Rimini superbike to off-road machines and high-end roadsters. Now, there is a new entry point in the Bimota world. Let me see if I can get the photo up. There it is. This one marks something of a change of direction for Bimota because the KB399, it takes Kawasaki's lightweight ZX-4RR Ninja and gives it the Bimota treatment, but at a surprisingly budget price. The KB399 starts at £10,099. It's only £400 more than the ZX-4RR, and for Bimota, that's an unheard of low price tag. So how did they do it? Well, you'll probably recall the ZX-4RR. It first arrived in Indonesia. It was a surprise launch in some ways in 2024. It's arrived in Europe. So what's the difference with the Bimota? Well, the key point here, and this is where my intro to the show was mistaken, the steel trellis frame is retained. It just gets a fresh coat of Bimota paint. The bodywork is restyled. It follows the lines of the KB4 Rimini, and you get that sort of classic red, white, and black livery. You do get some upgraded chassis parts. There are billet machined triple clamps, for example. There are Showa 41mm big piston forks up front, matching rear shock, and you get Brembo Stylema radial calipers, which offer some serious stopping power. The engine remains the same, 78 horsepower across the frame, 399cc4, same electronics package, traction control, rider modes, quick shifter, but you do get an Akrapovic silencer. There is a more exotic model if you want to fork out another £4,000+, and this one steps things up with an Öhlins rear shock, a full carbon fibre fairing, racier clip-ons. They say exactly how you get a racier clip-on, I don't know. Billet machine foot controls and adjustable rear sets. Bimota say the KB399 is aimed at both existing customers and the new wave of riders discovering the brand's craftsmanship. Kawasaki expects the bike to be officially listed as a 2027 model, with deliveries beginning typically in 2026 towards the end of the year, October or November. Now let's have a look at a totally different style of bike. This is the AJP PR7. It's a rally-influenced adventure motorcycle produced by AJP. Now this is a Portuguese manufacturer you may not have heard of. I think they are new to me. They're founded by brothers Antonio and Jorge Pinto. The company began producing bikes as well, basically through servicing machines in the 1980s, and they managed to produce their first complete bike, a 125cc two-stroke, in 1987. Now this machine is said to raise the bar in the adventure stakes. Ultra lightweight chassis, reliable single cylinder engine, EFI, combined with sophisticated suspension. Now the bike's actually been around for a while, 10 years in fact since its initial launch, but it has been receiving regular updates to components, the electronics and the overall specification. What's the engine? Well, you may have recognized it. It's a 600cc single cylinder engine provided by SWM. And that is itself based on an earlier Husqvarna design. I think they're now built in China. Optional upgrades include revised ECU, a titanium exhaust, a carbon intake, and that should make all the difference. And peak power is approximately 58 horsepower. Now, fully fueled, the bike weighs in at 165 kilograms, which isn't too heavy. 17-litre fuel tank. Now, that's positioned under the seat to centralize mass. And range is said to exceed 200 miles. Now you get Sachs suspension, long travel at both ends, a hybrid chassis with a steel mainframe but aluminium bolt-on components, subframe presumably. Now this is interesting. The bike also includes an integrated Galaxy tablet from Samsung for navigation, and that's mounted in a sort of rally style tower that also includes stacked headlights. Everything else standard: handguards, skid plate, foot pegs, adjustable suspension. The basic riding shape is as you would expect to find on an off-road bike. They say the machine offers a sort of compromise between lightweight enduro and larger adventure style machines. Electronics are fairly minimal apparently. ABS may be fitted depending on market. Well, it will be compulsory here and in Europe, of course, but you don't get the more usual traction control and selectable ride modes. So it aims at mechanical simplicity and ease of maintenance. So there we go. That's that particular machine. All right, so where are we? Just moving into the final section of the show, which is the in-depth look. When is a deterrent not a deterrent is the question I'm going to ask, and it comes back to those speed cameras. Well, when you don't know you're being deterred. Now, TfL, they say that speeding was a contributing factor in around half of the fatal collisions in London in 2024. And they also reveal that the Home Office says that more than 2.5 million people across the UK were caught speeding in that year, the highest since 2011. I have to say that is a fairly astonishing figure because it's basically 1 in 20. Now, these high-tech cameras said to be part of the City of London or London efforts to prevent deaths and serious injuries over the next 5 years through a new Vision Zero Action Plan number 2. And other technology is going to be introduced as well, but I'm not going to talk about that today. Now, these plans are apparently to expand the number of safety cameras, these stealth safety cameras, to at least 20 new locations, but the first 10 I've already mentioned it going in. Now, quoting Detective Chief Superintendent Donna Smith of the Met's Road and Transport Policing Command, she says, "It is tragic whenever anyone is killed or seriously injured on our roads, and speeding remains a major factor, which is why our officers are totally committed to reducing that risk. Working alongside TfL, the Met will use every tool available, including new radar-based camera technology, to deter dangerous driving and support Vision Zero's ambition of eliminating deaths on London's road. The trial will improve reliability and deliver better quality images, helping our officers hold offenders to account and ensuring that we have a modern and effective enforcement system that saves lives." Now, this is where things get interesting, of course. We've just seen that there are 1 in 20 drivers getting pulled up for speeding offences. Now, I've got some, I did have some figures somewhere, which looked at how many of these drivers actually end up on traffic awareness courses, and it's a very significant chunk. Now, if you know anything about what the criteria for getting a traffic course rather than a speeding ticket are, you have to be speeding by a relatively small amount. So I would say that, in fact, most of the people who are getting tickets, if they're ending up on traffic awareness courses, they aren't speeding as a deliberate decision. I would suspect that most of them actually probably don't actually know the speed limit or just crept over it by accident. It's very easy to do, of course, in a modern vehicle. There is technology which will recognize speed signs and where you are, and try to override the driver's tendency to put a foot down. But they're not infallible, and of course older vehicles won't have that anyway. So the question I'm asking is, if you hide the cameras from sight, and they're going to be difficult to detect apparently because they'll just be perched on things like streetlights, rather than on a sort of discrete pole with a yellow box sat on top of it, what's the deterrent factor? You won't know there is a speed camera there, and it's just as likely to catch someone who's just a couple of miles per hour over the speed limit as it is to catch someone who's blazing through it, like the pair that passed me last night at way over 60 miles an hour in a 20 limit. You're basically not catching the right people. And this is why I thought the yellow high-vis boxes were introduced. It was because drivers didn't want to catch sort of people at random. They actually wanted to just slow most drivers down. So I checked. And in fact, that was the exact reasoning that they moved to high visibility yellow on speed cameras. It was a deliberate policy shift, and it was intended to prioritize the deterrent effect of these cameras over detection. And in fact, there was something called a fairness mandate. In 2021, the UK government began requiring speed cameras to be painted bright yellow to refute the claims that they were simply money-raising devices. The goal was to actually slow drivers down at known accident hotspots rather than catching them by surprise. And the guidelines stated that these cameras should also be visible. They were supposed to be seen from 30 meters away in a 40 limit and from 100 meters in faster zones. So by October 2016, the Department for Transport Review apparently mandated that all working cameras on motorways should be yellow to ensure motorists are not unfairly penalised. So, bringing these stealth radar cameras in, it represents a shift back towards a sort of hidden enforcement. As I said, they're going to be much harder to spot. There's no flash. There are no road markings either. The problem is that the yellow paint is recommended, and it's actually recommended by the Met Police. The Met Police have just supported the use of these stealth cameras, and by the DFT, but it is not a legal requirement for a camera to be visible for a speeding fine to be valid. Now, TfL argue obviously that drivers only slow down by brake tapping when they see the yellow box, so they lose the deterrent the moment it's passed. But you know, if ultimately, if the speed limits themselves are hard to spot, and the variety of different speed limits in London is overwhelming. You can go. I've mentioned this on many occasions before. There's a couple of roads near here where you go from a 20 on a wide road which has a broad pavement and cycle lane alongside it to 30 just as the road narrows to a section that goes through an old toll gate and is basically single lane working to give way to traffic from the other direction. So obviously cyclists are now squeezed into the same space as all the traffic trying to get through. And I've got the big picture up. I don't know how that happened. And the speed limit goes up to 30 in this narrow section, and immediately the road widens on the far side. It goes back to 20. And then you get to a set of traffic lights just a few hundred meters further on, and you turn left, and you are into a 40-mile-per-hour road, which has parked vehicles all up either side of it and isn't much wider than the road you've just turned off, which was a 20 limit. They are baffling, they are inconsistent, and now it seems to me like the TfL and London generally just want to penalise drivers for being baffled by speed limits. And I honestly don't think that's a genuine safety measure at all. And I really hope there will be some pushback against this. Right, that is it for today's show. Thank you very much again for looking in. Just want to very quickly mention that my very latest book, which is Crash Scene Overtake, was published in ebook format on Friday, and I'll just put the link up to that to give everybody a heads up to where it is. You can download it straight away without any delay, straight from this link here, which is my coffee online shop. If you want to learn about the reasons that people have overtaking crashes on motorcycles, this book is the place to start. And it also gives you some hints on how to avoid them. It's not a guide to overtaking. That's covered elsewhere in great detail. And I didn't want to go over all the same ground again. So what this book does is provide you with some entirely new information about the problems of overtaking. And it gives you some really in-depth feel for how overtaking crashes happen. So if you want a copy of that, head to the link. It's a bargain, £7, and as I say, instant download. It's 90 pages long, so it's quick and easy to read, and the low price, the aim is to get as many people to read this as possible and understand the content that I've tried to produce for them. Right, that is it for today. If you are out there on the bike, it's quite a nice lunchtime here, blue sky, a bit on the chilly side. If you are out there on the bike today, make sure you stay shiny side up, and then I'll see you for 11s on Sunday next week. If you enjoy these shows, why not become a member of my coffee pages? Just follow the QR code and sign up. As a member, you get free access to the latest articles and the Survival Schools ebook shop with instant downloads of everything from free mini ebooks to ebook versions of my paperbacks. Become a one-off supporter and you'll open up the archive of over 1,000 articles. If you buy me a monthly cuppa as a subscriber, there's even more content to enjoy.